All right, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our second Nevada Judicial Town Hall for election 2020. Tonight we have with us Judge Bonnie Bulla, running for the Nevada Court of Appeals. We have Judge Doug Herndon, seeking election to the Nevada Supreme Court, CD. Judge Richard Scotti, seeking re-election to the Department 2 of the 8th Judicial District Court. Carl Armstrong, seeking election to the 8th Judicial District Court, Department 23. Mr. Jacob Reynolds, also seeking election to the 8th Judicial District Court, Department 21. And finally, Ms. Dawn Throne, running for Family Court Judge, Department U. Thank you all for being here this evening. Each of you will have 90 seconds to answer a series of 5 questions. We will do round robin, and Judge Bulla, we will go ahead and start with you.
Good evening, everyone. Such a pleasure to be here. I'm Judge Bonnie Bulla of the Nevada Court of Appeals, and this November I am running to retain my seat on the court. The Court of Appeals is the second highest court in the state, so I have been running, or should I say zooming, a statewide campaign. The reason I am running for election is because I went through the appointment process and was appointed to the court early last year. I now have to run in the first general election. I am a resident of Nevada for 33 years. I've been licensed for 30 years. I spent the first 19 years in private practice. I have my 80 preeminent rating from Martindale-Hubbell. I spent 12 years as Discovery Commissioner for the 8th Judicial District Court. And finally, I've spent over a year and a half on the Nevada Court of Appeals. I really would appreciate your support this November to continue to serve the people of Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Bulla. And next up, we have Judge Herndon.
Thank you, Dylan. Pleasure to be here this evening. I appreciate it. So I have been a district court judge for 15 years. Prior to that, I was a prosecutor in the district attorney's office. Actually started out in the appellate side of things, briefing cases for the Nevada and the United States Supreme Court, arguing cases as well. Became a trial attorney where I was the head of the special victims unit. Still argued in front of the Supreme Court 2 or 3 times a year for that time period. Since I've been a district court judge, I've heard every type of complicated civil and criminal case that our court system sees. I've tried about 275 trials. I've been one of the highest rated judges for 15 consecutive years, which I'm very proud of. And last year I had the highest performance rating of any of the district court judges here in Clark County. Enjoy support from law enforcement statewide, as well as a number of bipartisan political and community leaders. Very proud of that as well. I'm running for the Supreme Court because when I moved to Nevada 30 years ago, I very quickly felt embraced and supported by the community and fell in love with it. And that led me to pursue a career in public service. I've met every challenge and achieved everything I wanted to achieve as a district court judge. Still have a lot of passion and energy and love for this state and serving as one of its judges, and would like to take the experience and wisdom I've gained to the Nevada Supreme Court to continue to represent folks here in our state. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge Herndon. And next up, we have Judge Richard Scotti.
Hello, thank you, Dylan, for inviting us to be here. Thank you, ICAN. I'm Judge Richard Scotti. I'm your District Court Judge in Department 2, and I'm running for a re-election. I'd love to serve for another 6 years. My values are these: love of God, respect for family, respect for our Constitution and our individual liberties, respect for the rule of law. On a personal note, I have practiced law here for 30 years. I raised my family here. I have 2 grown children. I grew up in Southern California. When I was about 6, my dad joined the Marines and he went into combat in Vietnam, severely injured, and he received the Purple Heart. As a result of all that, my values are respect and love for our country and great respect for veterans. On a professional note, I have handled hundreds and hundreds of cases, all areas of law. I've received the preeminent rating from my peers. It's the highest rating possible in legal ability and ethical standards. As a judge, I have a very high accuracy rate. I have been endorsed by all major law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders. I've been endorsed by ICAN. That means a lot to me. I have these are my goals. These are my goals once I am reelected. I want to protect the rule of law. I want to apply the rule of law as written. I am going to ensure utmost due process, and I want to protect our God-given natural rights. So thank you. Please support me, Judge Richard Scotti, for re-election.
Perfect. Thank you, Judge Scotti. That's fantastic. And Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you. I'm Carl Armstrong, and I'm running for District Court Department 23. There is no incumbent in that race, and at this particular point, the reason why I'm running is because I've been a lawyer in Las Vegas for the last 27 years, been a lawyer totally for 30 years. I've been a prosecutor in the AG's office doing workers' compensation fraud. I've been a defense attorney as a public defender in Chicago. I've worked for 2 judges, Judge Adler Guy, as well as Judge Sally Laurer. I have been a civil practitioner working both for the AG's office as well as State Farm Insurance and as well as Travelers Insurance. And presently, I'm an appeals officer for the state of Nevada appointed by the governor to hear workers' compensation appeals. And I've done that for the last 4 years. So I've been like an administrative law judge relative to hearing cases, hearing motions, hearing cases in terms of people coming before me in terms of dealing with workers' compensation appeals. A little bit about me in terms of personally. I'm a husband of 25 years to my lovely wife, Chandra, and I have 3 sons, 33, 32, and 18, who just got started going to Loyola Marymount University, but he's here at home because he has to be here because of the COVID situation. My goals as a district court judge would be that I want to be fair, equitable, and listen to everyone's situation before making a decision, and also make those decisions as expeditiously as possible, because litigants need to have finality in terms of the decisions that need to be made. We want to make sure that our courts run effectively and efficiently, and that's what we need to have happen. I'm Carl Armstrong, and I'm running for district court judge.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Judge. And next up, we have Mr. Jacob Reynolds. Don't forget, there you go.
Thank you very much to ICAN for having us tonight. And a bit about myself and why I'm running is, first of all, this is an open seat. Judge Adair, who is currently in the seat, is retiring. Our firm actually represents her on several matters, and so we have a lot of respect for her. And when she decided to retire, I was interested in running for this seat. When I graduated from law school, I clerked for the chief judge of the federal district court here, and really enjoyed that opportunity. It was a hard clerkship to get, but I was grateful to have it and learned a lot, and made my decision really then that someday I wanted to be a judge as well. I really enjoyed the work that I was doing. A bit about me: I am married to my wife is an OBGYN, practicing OBGYN. We have 4 children. We met here in Las Vegas. I grew up all over the world, but always came back to the United States. My father used to teach at Edinburgh, and also taught at the Hebrew University in Israel. And I turned 13 while we lived there. And then I've lived in Argentina and worked in other countries as well. I believe this is an important position. It's a nonpartisan position, but I'm grateful to enjoy substantial bipartisan support and large community support from a number of community organizations. But I am very grateful for ICANN's endorsement. So thank you so much.
Did you say you turned 13 in Israel?
Yes, I did. I went to the Wailing Wall for my bar mitzvah.
You had a bar mitzvah. Great. That's fantastic. That's good to know. That's very good to know. All right, Dawn, you are up next.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to the voters once again. My name is Dawn Throne. I'm a candidate for Family Court Judge Department U, which is one of the 6 new seats that the legislature authorized to help with the case overload in family court. I've been practicing law here in Clark County for the last 24 years. The last 15 years, it's been solely family law, and I'm one of 48 family law specialists in the state of Nevada. I also have broad civil experience. For 9 years, I worked for 2 firms doing complex civil litigation, including bankruptcy, estate and trust litigation, personal injury, business dissolution. So I have a very broad range of experience, which is helpful in family court because family law cases touch upon every area of law, including criminal, bankruptcy. And I've also have judicial experience. I've sat as a hearing master for domestic violence cases on a pro tem basis. And I am a small business owner, and I'm a mom and a stepmom. I came here to Nevada to help my grandparents and my great-grandmother, and family is very important to me. I love working family law. I didn't think I would start there, but I love working in family law cases because you get to help individuals in very complicated matters and hopefully improve their lives. I am running for judge because we need the best judges possible in the family court, and I have broad bipartisan support also. Both Assemblywoman Leslie Cohen and Senator Keith Picard are family law attorneys, and they have both endorsed my candidacy, even though they're very far apart on the political spectrum. My name is Dawn Throne. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that, Dawn. All right, next up. So the next question is, please describe your involvement in the Nevada community. So Judge Bulla, we'll hear from you first.
Thank you. I think community service is so important. And whether you're a lawyer or a judge, giving back to your community is something that is worthwhile, not only for you personally, but it helps other people. I've been very involved in the community over a number of years. I worked in a ministry outreach to the homeless for many years, was at Salvation Army on Sunday morning, usually. And then I also have given back to the legal community. I was involved in the Southern Nevada Association of Women Attorneys. I was president of that organization. I have been involved and still involved in the Southern program. And I was attorney at Howard president of that organization. Chapter of the court. And I am currently a board member of the American Association of Jewish Lawyers and Jurists. I also participate in judging moot court competition at UNLV Boys School of Law, as well as the We the People contests. I try to do what I can do to help educate others as well. And I've worked hard to give a number of CLEs or continuing legal education classes over the years. I hope I've benefited others, but it has been a great benefit to me to serve my community. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Judge Bulla. And Judge Herndon, up next. Please describe your involvement in the Nevada community.
So let me go back just 1 second, Dylan, and first give you a little background on my family because it involves all of us. So my wife and I have been together since we met in college in Texas 34 years ago. And we have 2 daughters. Our oldest, Caitlin, is in a master's program now, and our youngest, Emily Grace, is a sophomore in college. Community service is something, look, it's not about being an attorney or a judge. I think everybody should have that obligation and feel that responsibility to become involved in the fabric of their community. And we've been very blessed with our kids having an interest in it, but also very disciplined in trying to get them involved in it. So my wife is a board member for the Girl Scouts of Southern Nevada, has worked at Salvation Army, been the liaison to the Shade Tree Shelter, worked at 3 Square Food Bank. In fact, that's what we did Monday for her birthday. The Las Vegas Fridge, Opportunity Village, the Miracle League, a whole host of other things. And she and our daughters were involved in the National Charity League as well, which is a mother-daughter organization for kids. And then myself, I've been involved in youth sports coaching, soccer, softball, et cetera, for many, many years. The thing I'm most proud of as a judge is a mock trial program that I put together for students in 4th and 8th grade to teach them about the court system. I let them come in and see actual court cases, get involved in cases themselves, try cases, and just learn about a lot of things related to the justice system that we don't teach them that much in school anymore. And we have that expanded to both California and Virginia as well, and got it in a lot of at-risk schools here in Clark County. So I'm very proud of that. As well as I work coaching trial advocacy for high school students, as well as judge trial advocacy programs for the law school as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Judge Herndon. I think we really appreciate hearing those personal stories. Next up, Judge Scotty. Please describe your involvement in the Nevada community. And unmute yourself first. Judge. Judge Scotty, can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Very good.
And start over.
Thank you.
We'll restart your time.
When-
There you go.
Thank you. When I first moved here to Nevada, I became a member of the Client Security Fund Committee. I was on that committee with Justice Cherry, and there what we did is we helped to reimburse individuals that were harmed by lawyers. Then I became a Supreme Court settlement judge. I served for 10 years at the pleasure of the Nevada Supreme Court. I helped people avoid litigation. I was the regional director for the State Bar Fee Dispute Committee, where I helped resolve billing disputes. I was an editor for the Ask a Lawyer column with the Las Vegas Review-Journal. I've been a mock trial judge. I teach elementary schools on education and the Constitution. I've been a pro bono lawyer. I volunteered for Share Village and Catholic Charities. I was elected twice by my peers to serve as a governor for the State Bar Board of Governors, where we manage the legal profession. One of the things that we would try to do is ensure diversity. Recently, I've been a speaker at an institution called Novum Education Program, which teaches formerly incarcerated individuals. I write for a prison magazine. I am a volunteer with Empowerment Through Training and Education. We help people in economically disadvantaged neighborhoods. And I also was a prosecutor for the Nevada State Contractors Board, where I enforced the safety rules to also keep us safe, and also helped subcontractors and laborers get paid. Those are the things that I've done for the community. I hope to have a greater opportunity to do a lot more. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Judge Scotty. All valuable experience. And next up, Mr. Armstrong.
Okay, I've been, as a board member, I've been a board member of Eastern Seals, Nevada, as well as the National Board of Eastern Seals, helping disabled children and adults in terms of dealing with their needs. I've also been a member of Big Brothers Big Sisters Board of Directors, as well as the Boy Scouts of America Boulder Dam Area Council. I've also been, for the last 18 years, a member of the Commission on Judicial Discipline. That's basically the group that disciplines lawyers. I've spent 12 years as a member of the disciplinary panel for lawyers. So if you see a theme here, one of the themes that I have is I'm really interested in ethics and responsibility of both lawyers as well as judges in terms of their actions both on and off the bench. Other things that I've done, I've been a member of an organization called Stop the F Street Coalition, basically keeping a street open from the west side because the city wanted to close that street, and that was the only street that allowed access between the west side and downtown. I've also basically been an active member of my church, and I've been in the church for like 23 years. And what I've done is I've taught Sunday school, and I've also been an active member in my church. Those are things that I've done in the community because I believe that we have to do what we can being a part of a community and not just being someone that takes from the community. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. And Mr. Reynolds, you're up.
Thank you. Some of the things I do in my community is I was the chair of the J. Reuben Clark Law Society, which is essentially a group of faith leaders in the community that try to enhance the law by encouraging people to practice pro bono and to practice ethically. I've also sat on multiple boards for education by appointment and also by invitation. Those are bipartisan boards. I have 4 children, and I've spent a lot of time coaching those children in various sports, basketball, soccer, and now I cheer with volleyball and hockey. So I'm also on the board of the American Association of Jewish Lawyers and Jurists here in Las Vegas with Milan Chatterjee running that organization. And I've spent a lot of time teaching the Constitution to children in our schools here. I've gone into the central and eastern side of the valley to teach 5th graders and work with a group that wants to increase civics education. And that's been some of my community involvement. I've been very grateful for the opportunities I've had. I also serve in my church, and I'm grateful for that opportunity.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. And Dawn Throne. Sorry, hold on.
Thank you for that question.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go.
Thank you for that question. I, too, also find that giving back is very giving back to the community is very rewarding to myself. Some of my service has been through my church, including being on the Boy Scout committee when my stepson was young. And now I teach young girls ages 7 and 8. I also have done a lot of pro bono in family law. There's a lot of opportunities, including judges asking myself and my partner to mediate family law cases and help them get settled. We've been appointed as guardian ad litems for children and adults who are in guardianship cases or divorce cases, and represented a lot of domestic violence victims pro bono, as well as I believe in giving back to the state bar. Most recently, I am the vice chair of the state committee on the child support guidelines, and we spent numerous hours rewriting the whole guidelines on how you calculate child support in Nevada. I've also been a fee dispute arbitrator for the last 17 years. And for the last 3 years, I've served on the Southern Nevada Discipline Board, which hears attorney discipline.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Throne. So I am very happy to report that we have Judge Susan Johnson with us.
Thank you.
Judge Johnson, thank you for joining us.
I apologize. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're coming in loud and clear.
Great, thank you.
So here's what we'll do. We will, let me put you in your order here. And would you mind, what we'll do is we'll give you a few minutes. We've gone through 2 questions. I'll let you answer them back to back. How about that?
Sounds great, thank you.
So here's what we've got. We've got number 1, please tell us about yourself and why you're running for your respective seat. And then just follow up with your community involvement with it, which I know is fantastic. Okay, we'll give you a few minutes to do that. Is that okay with everybody?
Sure.
We all love Susan,
Well,
right? Okay.
I'll be very quick. In fact, one of the community involvements I'm in is I am the foundation chair for both my district in terms of District 5300 for Rotary, but I'm also the club foundation chair for my Rotary Club of Green Valley, and the meeting just went over. I'm on the strategic planning committee for that. So that is just one of the things I'm involved in. I'm also a daughter of the American Revolution and a member of that. I'm also a member of Junior League of Las Vegas Sustainers. I'm a liaison, for example, for the Bear Project Committee. And I'm a member of various organizations, and I have been since I was a teenager. So I'm very, very active in the community. As far as what I'm running for, I am running for District 22 of the 8th Judicial District Court. I have been a resident of Clark County for almost 57 years. Of course, I've been a judge for 14 years. And before that, I was a lawyer for 21 years. So I have 35 years of legal experience. And as a judge, I hear civil and constructional defect cases primarily, although I do hear criminal cases on an overflow basis. So why do I want to run? Because I love serving our community as your district court judge. I think I'm doing a very good job for the community as your district court judge. I think I've been honored to receive the endorsement of various organizations who recognize my work, including firefighters, labor, police, prosecutors, and also ethnic organizations such as Asian American Group, and just recently the Asian Chamber of Commerce, Hispanics in Politics, and that's just to name a few. So I think I'm doing a good job for our community. I want to continue doing that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Judge Johnson, and again, I'm really glad you're able to join us. You're one of our favorites, and we're happy to have endorsed you as well. So thank you for jumping in. All right, so let's get back on track here. So we are on question 3. Is that right? Hold on, I think we're a little bit out of order. So I think Judge, you need to go here, Judge Scotty, and then Armstrong, and then this way. Okay, there we go. Now we're all set. All right, guys. So the next question is, what is your judicial philosophy? And Judge Bulla, we will go ahead and start with you.
Thank you so much. My judicial philosophy is simple. It's just to apply the law fairly and impartially and take each case on its merits. It really is important to me that I research whatever issues are before me and make sure that I understand fully the issues so that I can apply the law fairly. I had the opportunity to work on the committee that wrote the rules of civil procedure. They rewrote those rules. And it was such a learning experience for me to be able to work with others and to hopefully have rewritten those rules and they will stand for another 50 years. But it demonstrated to me the importance of really looking at the law, understanding it, and applying it fairly. And even if sometimes I might have done something different than what the district court judge did below, if it is within the law, if it's appropriate within the bounds of the law, then I will apply the law properly. So that's my judicial philosophy. Apply the law fairly and impartially and take each case on its merits.
Perfect. Thank you, Judge Bulla. Next up, we have Judge Herndon.
Thank you, Dylan. So a little story that kind of goes into my judicial philosophy. My wife and her side of the family are Jewish, and her grandmother came over to the United States when she was a teenager, having escaped from the Holocaust. I didn't meet her until later in life. I said my wife and I met in college. But the time that I spent with her, I had never met anybody before, and I haven't met anybody since that loved the United States more than Ilse Spanier loved the United States. And she loved it because of the principles it was founded on, the structure of our government, and the freedoms that it provided. And that has always been at the core of my belief about serving as a judge. You start with the philosophy of recognizing the structure of our government and how it's represented, and abiding very strictly as to what the role of a judge is, not to be a legislature, not to be in the executive branch, but to do the job of a judge, do it fairly and do it independently. I've also always kind of been a big fan of something Socrates said 2,400 years ago about judges, which is that 4 things belong to a judge: to hear courteously, to answer wisely, to consider soberly, and to decide impartially. 4 very simple principles, but things that oftentimes I think get lost when you're on the bench doing your job. And always stay open-minded. You never know where the critical piece of information is going to come from that is very important in good decision-making. So judges have to always remain open-minded until it's time to make a decision. So that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Judge Herndon. I always love hearing the story about your family and the Holocaust. And I think you know that as an organization, that's important for us. And I think maybe after the election, we should explore that story more if you're willing to share more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you.
Great.
I want to be a favorite like Susan Johnson.
You are a favorite. You're all favorites. All right.
She comes late to class and she's still the favorite.
All right. Well, and then she's up next. So Judge Johnson, tell us your judicial philosophy. There you are.
Well, I think I have to mirror exactly what Judge Bulla and Judge Herndon had said. But also, we have to remember that the judiciary is the 3rd branch of government. We are not there to make the law like the first branch of government is of the legislature. We're not there to enforce a law like the 2nd branch of government. We are there to apply and interpret the law. And one of the things that I do is I do interpret our laws strictly. I do as what the legislature intended. Now, the problem is sometimes I do it strictly and as it's intended, but sometimes the legislature is, well, the way they've done it is they've made it ambiguous in meaning that it can be interpreted in more than one reasonable way. And so at that point, what our job is to look at, well, what was intended by the legislature? So I look at legislative history. And in terms of what did they really mean whenever they were trying to apply this law or enact this law. And then I also look at the other statutes that are within that chapter, and then I try and harmonize it. And that's how I come up with an interpretation of that law. So I'm strict on it, but at the same time, I want to harmonize it with what is within the chapter of the law.
Perfect. Thank you, Judge Johnson. If I may just ask, and really anybody can answer this. You mentioned looking at the legislative history. What does that include? Does that include testimony from legislators? Does that include committee hearings? What do you all look at? Anybody can answer.
It seems like everything, all the things you're talking about.
Yeah. Bola,
Yeah.
I see you wanted to speak up.
No, Judge Herndon and I spoke up, I think, at the same time because we look at everything. In fact, we were just, this week, in fact, I looked at legislative history, the committee meeting minutes, as well as any input that
And do you
is
include
available.
testimony from the public or organizations?
Yeah, you'll get a lot of that. You'll get not only the testimony from the assemblymen and women and the state senators who are considering things, but interested parties, just members of the public, people that maybe have been affected by certain types of crimes or lack of laws regarding certain types of conduct that have an interest, as well as attorneys, organizations that have an interest, and obviously lobbyists as well. But you get it all. And oftentimes it's incredibly enlightening because the law itself doesn't give you a lot. And then when you see what everybody breathed into it at the time it was being created, that can be incredibly helpful.
Perfect. Good to know. As an advocacy organization, and our community testifies a lot and participates in this, so I think that's very interesting for our viewers and our community to know. All right, thank you. All right, so Judge Scotty, you are up next.
Thank you. I appreciate an opportunity to answer this question. One of the things that we have to remember as judges is our responsibility to be humble. And in being humble, we're not supposed to satisfy, or we're not supposed to announce or reflect our own personal judgment on a law, whether a law is right, whether a law is wrong. What I do is I am an originalist when it comes to interpreting the laws or the Constitution. A judicial philosophy is to apply the law as written, but in a fair and reasonable manner. I don't apply the words strictly and just textually. I don't apply the words blindly. But on the same token, I don't apply the words in the manner in which I personally think that they should be applied. I don't look at I don't apply my own political views. I don't look at special interests. I don't look at the way I want society to be. What I do is what our Supreme Court Justice Scalia did as originalist. You got to apply the law as written, but in a reasonable manner to achieve a reasonable result, but always being tethered by the words as written. And I do this with the Constitution as well as the legislature. Judge Johnson is correct. Oftentimes the words are ambiguous, and then I have to resort to legislative history. I have a really, really complicated case in front of me now involving interplay of the executive branch and the legislative branch, where there's an individual who was on the a district attorney who's also in the legislature, and I'm asked to look at whether you can do that. And I'm studying everything. I can't comment more than that, but I'm studying even legislative history. Legislative history includes the debates, prior laws, what other jurisdictions do that have been considered by our legislators here, public comments, reports that are submitted, any evidence that's part of the record and in the minutes of the development of the existing law. That's what I do. I'm an originalist, and I think it's important for judge to be humble and realize they're just one person. They can't invent the law themselves.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Great answer. Thank you, Judge Scotty. And Mr. Armstrong.
I guess I'd answer this question in two ways. One of the things is how you treat the people that come before your court. You have to treat them with respect You have to listen to what they have to say and take in all the information that's provided both by their counsels as well as the witnesses in order to make a determination. As to judicial philosophy, basically what a judge's role is to be referee. A judge's role is not to make law, put their own personal spin on what a law is or what it isn't. Bottom line is we're supposed to be looking at everything equitably, fairly, and make an expeditious decision that we can in order to allow the litigants to get on with their lives. That's something that we need to do. We can't put our finger on the scale and say that we believe that one side should win over another side. We also can't look at any of the litigants as being any different from another litigant. Everyone is equal, everyone is the same. And that's something that has to happen. And also in interpreting the law, basically it is the law. That is the role of a judge, to interpret the law. They don't make the law. They don't do things in terms of trying to subvert the law or anything of that nature. Whatever it says on the books, we have to enforce. But if we believe that there are changes that need to be made, the people that we talk to about that is the legislature. And that's what we have to do. But we don't make law. We just basically adjudicate materials that are before us based on the laws that are presently on the books. That's all we do. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. And Mr. Reynolds, you're up next.
Yeah, I was just going to say basically the same things other people have been saying on here, but I would just add that I look at judicial history. Scalia looked at legislative history. There's a quote that I remember from law school is that it's like looking over a crowd and trying to find your friends, and so that, and you talked about you're part of an advocacy group now, and that's why you have to be involved in the legislative process, because you need to get that in there, because some judges rely on that. But frankly, the law and the precedent and the rules of interpretation are such that if the statute is clear, then you just go with what the statute says. And I've had a lot of cases where judges don't have the fortitude to say what the law says. I've had 2 judges rule what the law says exactly and say, hey, there's a very hard decision to be made, but that's what the law says. And that's the decision the judge needs to reach. Then I've had other judges who don't know who think that the law results in an unfair result. And then so they make a different decision, or they try to split the baby, as it were. And it's a very offensive way to be a judge, in my opinion. And litigants who come have the right to rely upon the law as it is written. Attorneys should be able to advise their clients based on the law as it is written. And when they cannot rely on the law as it is written, then it is extremely unfair. It increases costs, it's unnecessary, and it results in bad judgment, and it has various ripple effects that I could go into a long story about, personal issues with that and historical issues with that, where I think it's brought about some of the worst decisions in our case history in the United States, but that kind of judging. But I'm an originalist, textualist, and believe that's the right way to go, and let the legislature change the laws.
Well, one thing I can promise you, Mr. Reynolds, is that as we advocate, we will always try to make sure our bills and statutes are clear and not confusing.
Good.
Just to help you guys out, make
That's
things.
the way to do it.
Yeah. All right. And Ms. Throne, you are up next. What would be your judicial philosophy?
Well, going last, I could just say ditto what all of my colleagues said, but I come at it also, and I will add, obviously, you have to, as a judge, respect the role that you have as a judge, respect the balance and separation of powers, and respect the Constitution, and know your role. In family court, where there's a little bit of differences, we don't have juries making the ultimate decision. That has to be made by the judge. You're also dealing with approximately 66% of the people who appear in family court don't have lawyers. So your role as a judge is a little different in being respectful, being approachable, listening to them, and then helping parties resolve cases themselves. If they can, you give them the tools, you tell them, here's Family Mediation Center, you work with them on that. But when they can't make the decision themselves and resolve it, then you have to be efficient. You have to follow the law and explain to them why you made that decision and what the law allows. And you have to constantly examine yourself for your personal biases and make sure that you're not making decisions based on things that are not relevant, such as gender, religion, race, sexual orientation. All of those things are very important for a family court judge to watch for.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Throne. And all right, so our next question, it's a little similar. So, maybe you can expand a little bit further. I think each of you have discussed this to a certain extent, at least tangentially. But what are the qualities of a good judge? And Judge Bulla, we'll go ahead and start off with you.
Thank you. I think one of the most important qualities is to have experience as a decision maker or a problem solver. I really believe that experience helps you to be able to address new issues that come before you. And I am very fortunate when I was appointed to the Nevada Court of Appeals that I had 12 years of decision-making experience as the Discovery Commissioner, where I handled a lot of very complex pretrial issues. And it also helped me to learn how to work with others, as well as to help lawyers resolve some of their issues in a very civil manner. I also think another important aspect of being a judge is hard work. And several of my colleagues here this evening have mentioned that. I think it's important to know that on the Nevada Court of Appeals, I am one of 3 judges. So I have to work hard with my colleagues together as a team. And last fiscal year, we resolved over 1,000 appeals. So having experience as a problem solver and working hard, not only individually, but in my case, as a court of 3, is very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Bull. And I have to say, all of you guys, your hard work is acknowledged and appreciated, especially these days. Judge Herndon, you're up next. What are the qualities of a good judge?
So I would start out agreeing with what Bonnie said, particularly when you're talking about either her role on the Court of Appeals or the role I'm seeking on the Supreme Court. At the appellate court level, there is nothing to replace the experience you have in judicial roles at the trial court level, which she had in her former position with the 8th Judicial District and which I have in my position now. Absent that, it would be almost impossible to come on to an appellate court and start adjudicating things that happened at the trial court. But in regard to judges in particular, I've always looked at it as 2 main things. It's work ethic and it's attitude. I've been working since I was 12 years old, and I've done everything from clean bathrooms to be a chief judge and everything in between, barback, busboy, construction, you name it. I have a great appreciation for what it means to reward people for the trust and confidence they place in you. And I do that every day as a judge, and I'd like to continue doing that as a Supreme Court justice. From the attitude standpoint, I think it deals with, and Richard said this earlier, humility. To be a good judge, you have to recognize that you're a human being like everybody else, and you're not always going to know everything. At least you're not going to know it right away. And you got to roll up your sleeves and dig a little bit, and being willing to admit that sometimes you might be incorrect about something, and that's okay. Human beings all have that. It also deals with independence. Jacob referred to this earlier. I was at a forum in Pahrump last night where they were asking questions about difficult decision making. Any experienced judge is going to tell you that they've had to make decisions where they disagree with the decision they have to make, but the law commands you to do it. And you have to have the independence and fortitude to do that, or you shouldn't be in the position. So those are most of the things. And the last thing I would say is you need to be a good person. You need to be a decent, polite, professional person in how you treat people in court to be good at the job and be well respected at the job. So thank you.
Perfect. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And Judge Johnson, you are up next. What are the qualities of a good judge? And you can go ahead and unmute yourself, Susan. There you go.
Sorry away the background noise from
That's
everything. Okay. I want to touch on what Judge Herndon just said, and that is I actually talked with an attorney yesterday, and he said the quality that he appreciated about me was that I was not afraid to make a decision, which resonated with me, that maybe some of my colleagues are having that difficulty. I don't know if that's true or not, but that was one thing he said about me. I was not afraid to make a decision. I think experience matters. I think a good quality as a judge is to listen, to be professional, patient, polite, and respectful. And I might note that when you're polite and respectful, that usually gives a calming effect to the court, to where you actually show control of the courtroom without being mean or mad or anything like that. If you are polite and respectful, let me tell you something, it gives a different tenor to the court. And I think that is a good quality of a judge.
Perfect. Thank you, Judge Johnson. And Mr. Scotty.
Thank you.
Judge
Well,
Scotty,
thank you. People want a judge basically that makes right decisions and through a process that's fair and stands up and has the courage to do what's right and stands up to special interests in politics. So breaking those down, the first right decision, that comes with legal ability, that comes with having come from a practice that's very diverse, that has small cases and large cases, that has given you the opportunity to both try cases before a judge and a jury, and you know. So what you need is a judge that works hard and has legal ability. I have 30 years experience and I'm A-rated, so I satisfy that category. Then you need integrity. You need a judge who is going to do what's right and apply a fair process without regard to sex or national origin or religion or rich or poor, attorney or no attorney, or a powerful corporation or a pro-per person. So you got to have integrity, and then courage. You got to have the courage to do the right thing in the face of extreme political pressure and special interests. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I've had cases come in front of me where I have big, powerful. Well, we all have. I had a case where I had Metro on one side and the Review Journal on the other side. And imagine trying to, control the courtroom with the vigorous argument with those two powerful interests. Well, a judge has to do what's right. You have to look at the law. You have to look at the facts and have the courage to do what's right, and not just be influenced by politics or powerful entities. That's what I have. So legal ability and ethics and courage, and those are three of the most important qualities as I see them.
Perfect. Thank you, Judge Scotty. And Mr. Armstrong, what are the
I guess
qualities?
one of the major things that you have to have is that you have to have patience, because people need to have the time and the ability to tell their story, whatever that story is. But it also has a tendency to calm the courtroom down, because most people, that may be the only opportunity they have to tell their story. It also has to be listened to in terms of the evidence has to be reviewed, as well as the law needs to be reviewed in order to make good decisions. One of the other things is, as Judge Johnson stated, is that you have to have respect for the people that come before you. That's what's important, because if you have to understand that you are a politician also with being a judge. And being a politician means that we're there to serve them as well as administering justice. And we have to administer justice in a way that everyone gets a fair shake and everything is taken into account before a decision is made. Now, the hardest thing is to make a decision that sometimes goes against what you may believe or whether you think some party should win or some party should lose. We have to follow the law. We have to say that this is what the law is, and I can feel sorry for a decision that I have to make, but I still have to make that decision. That's what's important, that we make the right decision based upon everything that's presented to us. That's what we have to do, and that's what we're being paid to do. And we have to do that no matter our personal opinions on any particular issue or any particular defendant or any particular civil litigant either. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. And go ahead and go to Mr. Jacobs. What are the qualities of a good judge?
Once again, I would come back to the decision making, and I'd say ditto to a lot of what's been said. I'd say you need to be intelligent, to be able to do the job. It's hard work. You have to be able to understand why we do what we do. What's the philosophy of the law? What does the rule of law really mean? The rule of law, often people say, oh, well, that's a statute. That's what's written. And that's not what I mean by the rule of law. When I say the rule of law, that means the law applies to everybody. We're talking about Nixon, Watergate type of things. The law applies to the president, right? The law applies to the governor. The law applies to every single person. Nobody is above the law. That is the rule of law. The law is what governs, and we are all subject to that. And there's proper ways to address it and proper ways to work within the law. And I believe everybody should understand their role in that and what judges' roles are. So I believe you need the intelligence to understand that, and you also need the fortitude, as I've mentioned before, to make decisions. Contrary to what Judge Johnson says, I agree that Judge Johnson was great at making decisions. It's very frustrating as an attorney to go in front of a judge who doesn't want to make decisions, but would rather have the parties settle the matter outside of court. We come to court because we want the judge to make a decision and we can move forward as attorneys. That's the kind of judge I will be, is making decisions.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. And let's go ahead and go next to Don Throne. What are the qualities of a good judge?
Well, I would agree with all of my colleagues and everything they said, but dovetailing in with it's making a decision. In family court, our best judges are willing to make a decision and stand by that decision and enforce it when they have to. The judges who don't, who are afraid to make a decision and keep trying to have the party settle over and over again, ends up costing the parties more time, money, stress. So I think you have to be willing to make a decision once you know what that decision should be under the law and the facts of the case. But a good judge also loves what they do. And in family court, that's especially important. It is very emotionally draining. You see sometimes the worst in people at family court, and you have to love what you're doing and why you're there to do it, to be good at it. And lastly, you have to care about the families and especially the children who didn't ask to be involved in a court case. You have to understand that your decision will affect those children and make the best decision you can based upon the law and the facts, and know that that decision will affect those children, and you make it in light of that and protect them as much as possible from their parents' conflict.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Throne. And all right, we are at our last question. And I do have to say this will be ICANN's last judicial town hall before Election Day. Thank you. We're happy about that. This will be the last question, and then we'll all just at the end after this. Please don't disappear. We'll just say goodnight to each other. So our last question is, what would you consider as your greatest strengths or weaknesses? And first up, Judge Bulla.
I, first of all, want to say I love my job. I love what I do. And I had the experience as a seasoned decision maker, but also on the Court of Appeals, we do a lot of researching, writing, editing, and those are all things I really enjoy doing. So I have the skill set as well as the commitment and the enjoyment of being on the court. And that is very beneficial. In terms of my weaknesses, oh boy, I'm sensitive, and that's sometimes difficult in handling certain types of matters, and certainly in today's environment, it is sometimes a challenge. I also am a worrier, and you could ask my husband about this. I do tend to worry. I make sure that I understand what I need to be doing, and I do grapple with my decisions. I'm very fortunate, though, that I do have good support at home. My husband is Jewish, and he always helps me keep things in perspective, and he is such a good support system for me, and I'm grateful for that. And it's a pleasure being here this evening. Thank you.
Great. Well, Judge Bulla, if being a sensitive warrior is one of your weaknesses, we love you. we're very glad to have you and support you. All right. So, Judge Herndon, you are up next. What would you say your greatest strength and greatest weakness?
Let me go back to something real quick, because I stand by my answer to the last question, but I think Dawn corrected with my answer. I think it starts really being a good judge starts with loving your job. You're not going to be a good judge if you're somebody that doesn't like being an attorney and think this is just somehow going to make your life better. You really need to love what you do. And I think that is one of my strengths, because I came to the law later in life. I went to college studying marine biology and biochemistry. I was going to be Jacques Cousteau and sail the seven seas and study the marine environment. So I kind of fell into the law a little later and developed a real intense love for it. And the same thing with public service. And so no matter how difficult the things are that come before me as a judge, I love being a judge every single day. And I think that enthusiasm is important. I also think one of my strengths is work ethic. As I said, I've just always been willing to roll up my sleeves. I'm a little bit of a law nerd, so I like digging and digging and digging and trying to find answers to get as close to something that provides precedent as possible. As well as I think I'm incredibly independent. I don't mind making tough decisions at all. Even if they're going to be unpopular decisions with the public, with the attorneys, with whomever it is, decisions need to be made, and I don't have any problem making those decisions. My weakness, time management. I'm going to be late to my own funeral. I can guarantee that. And I get myself overscheduled a lot in terms of saying yes to too many things, and then you don't, sometimes you're not very good at any of them if you can't really apply yourself. So I'm a work in progress in terms of time management.
All right, thank you, Judge Herndon. And listen, we all love law nerds here, so you're very much welcome. All right, Judge Johnson.
I would have to say my greatest strength is I am not afraid to make a decision. A decision has to be made, and I am not afraid to make it. I know that when I first started on the bench, it was funny. Some of the attorneys, they pounded the desk and say, well, if you don't do this, I'm going to appeal. I thought, well, that's why the 7 wise ones have a job in Carson City, but I'm going to make the decision. Also, I think I've got good control of the courtroom, and I think it stems back from me being polite and respectful of the parties. I think I've been told that my court has a federal court feel, and I was very flattered by that. But I do have good control of the courtroom. My weakness, well, I'm kind of impatient with attorneys who are sloppy and who have not had good work ethic. I might note that I've had attorneys be late for trial. Well, I'm not very patient about that, and I make it very clear that I'm not happy with them being late, because it's not just my time that's involved. It's also the party's time. It's also their adversary's time. So I have difficulties with sloppiness and lack of work ethic on the lawyer's part.
All right, Judge Johnson, thank you so much for that answer. And Judge Scotty.
I'll start by echoing what some of the others said. Of course, work ethic and passion and love for my job are some of my strengths, but let me talk about something new. I consider myself a good listener, and I consider myself to have patience with the litigants and the attorneys. It's important to be a good listener. I give the litigants and their attorneys ample opportunity, perhaps more than they need. I give them a lot of opportunity to express themselves. I have a lot of pro per cases that come in front of me because the chief judge put me in charge of all misdemeanor appeals and all eviction appeals in the county. So these are a lot of pro pers, and court's really intimidating for them. And it's so important for me, for a judge, for all of us, to make sure that the litigants have a absolute full opportunity to say to express themselves. And sometimes it takes a while for them, the pro pers, to get to the point. And so I think that's one of my strengths. I had a pro per come into my court one time, and boy, he was taking a long time, and I wasn't getting it. And I gave him chance after chance, and I ruled against him. And he's walking out the courtroom, and he turns around and says, Judge Scotty, I think you made the wrong decision, but you're the first judge to actually care and listen to me. And that was a matter up on appeal. So that makes you feel good. I'm a good listener. In terms of weaknesses, I have attorneys in my courtroom that are complained that I give people too much time. The attorneys, they're sitting in the back, and they think I'm giving too much time to everybody. And what they don't realize, though, is when it's their turn and they come up, they take just as much time. So all the attorneys want to talk. They want themselves to be heard, but no one else. So anyway, that's my strengths and weaknesses. I listen carefully, but some say that maybe I give a little bit too much time to the attorneys.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Judge Scotty. And Mr. Armstrong.
I guess my thing is that in terms of being, my biggest strength is someone that basically cares, someone that listens, someone that respects people's time, somebody that respects and listens to what they have to say. I guess in terms of a weakness, also the other thing is that it's something Judge Herndon said, that you have to love this because you have to understand, most of us have been doing this 25 or 30 years. So you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again in different settings and not love the law and the give and take that we have dealing with the law. The hardest thing is sometimes attorneys. And what I tell attorneys when they come into the appeals office, I tell them that presume I've read your briefs. I've read everything in your briefs. I know what your briefs say. I know what your arguments are relative to that. Please don't repeat what you've already put in your brief. And every time I say that, it doesn't really matter sometimes because sometimes they will want to argue what's in their brief, not presuming that I've read the stuff before it got there. That's what has to happen. And I want you as a lawyer to be as prepared as I am to hear your case. And if you're not prepared, that becomes a problem. And it should not be a situation in which I know more about your case than you know about your case. That somewhat is a pet peeve of mine in terms of that's something that should never happen. So those are the areas in which I have like strengths and weaknesses in terms of being able to be patient with some of the litigants in terms of making sure that they have the time and have the ability to make their best argument. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. And Jacob Reynolds, you are up next.
Well, thank you very much. Some of these people are citing weaknesses that I consider strengths. Not having tolerance for bad lawyering in their courtrooms is fine by me. I would say my strengths would be I have broad support, and that I think it's important to have. This is a nonpartisan race. Judges' races are nonpartisan, but I have a bunch of broad bipartisan support in the community. I'm endorsed by both very prominent Republicans like Governor Sandoval, U.S. Senator Dean Heller, Mark Hutchison, and Democrats Richard Bryan, Senator Richard Bryan, Governor Bob Miller, William Horn, former majority leader. I think that's important because the parties and the attorneys involved need to have a reverence and respect for the decision maker. And I believe I bring that consensus to look and that respect to the decision-making process. So that's one strength that I would cite. I'm also willing to learn. I would probably mix this with my weakness because we're going quick, but I don't know everything, and this is probably going to be a civil. Chances are I'll be handling some criminal cases. I haven't done criminal cases since my federal court clerkship, and so I am counting on learning. This is an open seat, so it's not like I'm replacing a sitting judge with 20 years of experience. Neither one of the candidates has criminal experience going into this court, but I am willing to learn. So where I do have weakness in a lack of experience, it's certainly not a lack of experience that hurts my chances, I believe, but I am willing to learn, and I believe that's important for judges to be humble in that regard and be willing to put their shoulder to the wheel and learn.
Perfect. Thank you, Jacob. And last but not least, Dawn Throne. What would you say your greatest strengths and weaknesses are?
My strengths are being hardworking. I grew up very poor, and I learned very early that hard work is what's going to get you where you want to go. I started getting paying jobs at 12 and 13 years old. I'm also compassionate. I care about the children who are stuck in family court, whether it's an abuse and neglect case or a custody dispute. I care about them, and I'm compassionate and want to help the families resolve things and be a solution-oriented person. My weaknesses are being stubborn and not wanting to ask for help. And those two go together very poorly when you have a flat tire in the middle of the night and it's raining and you don't want to ask for help. You will sit there for an hour or two that it takes you to change the tire yourself. So I'm not good. That also makes me not good at delegating things that can be delegated so that I can be more efficient. So those are things I need to constantly work on.
All right. Thank you. Easy answer. All right, everyone. So I want to thank you all for joining us here for this last judicial town hall. It's been great to get to know all of you through the primary season and now through the general. We're supporting all of you at ICAN, and you're all ICAN endorsed, and we will be promoting you to our constituents in Nevada and in Clark County. So if you want to say any last words and say goodnight, feel free to unmute. And otherwise, we will pray Election Day comes swiftly and the results come just as fast. So thank you all again.
Thank you very much, Dylan.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dylan. Have a good evening. Take
Thank you,
care.
guys. Have a good night.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Good luck, everybody.
Bye.
Good luck.